Everyone was watching when he took the keys from my hand. He didn't raise his voice. That almost made it worse. The board members stood behind him, eyes lowered, papers clutched to their chests. Parents filled the hallway outside the office, pretending not to listen. He said the words slowly, like he was explaining a policy change. Effective immediately. I was no longer needed. No one asked why. No one reminded him that I had built the program from scratch. I stood there, hands at my sides, and let the silence close over me. The humiliation was tidy and complete. He had been my supervisor for 9 years. Careful with his image. Careful with donors. Careful with anything that might stain the school's reputation. I learned that early. The program I ran wasn't glamorous. It kept the after-school center open for kids who had nowhere else to go. We fed them, helped with homework, waited with them until someone came. I stayed late most nights. Sometimes I locked up alone. In December, one of the older boys told me the roof above the storage room was leaking again. I filed the report. Maintenance said they'd look at it. They didn't. 2 weeks later, a ceiling tile collapsed during a storm. No one was hurt, but a parent filmed the water pouring through the lights and posted it online. That was when he called me into his office. He closed the blinds first, said we needed to control the narrative. He used that phrase often. Control the narrative. He said the video made the school look negligent. He asked why I hadn't escalated the maintenance request. I reminded him I had sent 3 emails. He nodded, as if that were unfortunate but irrelevant. Parents don't care about internal processes, he said. They care about accountability. I understood then what he was preparing to do. He told me the board was already uneasy about funding. Donors were sensitive. One more incident, and we could lose a major grant. He said someone had to accept responsibility. His tone stayed even. Professional. Almost kind. I asked if maintenance had been spoken to. He paused. Just long enough. Maintenance reports to facilities, he said. You oversee the program. It was a neat line. Clean. Hard to argue with. I reminded him that I had warned him about the roof during the budget meeting in October. He remembered. I could see it. But memory wasn't useful to him now. He leaned back in his chair. This doesn't have to be punitive, he said. If you resign, we can frame it as a personal decision. A desire to pursue other opportunities. I stared at the bookshelf behind him. Awards lined in rows. Photos of ribbon cuttings. Smiling faces frozen in better moments. I didn't do anything wrong, I said. He folded his hands. Sometimes it's not about wrong. It's about optics. Optics. Narrative. Accountability. Words that float above facts. I left his office without agreeing to resign. I thought that mattered. I thought standing still would make him reconsider. Instead, he called an emergency meeting with the board. I wasn't invited. By the next morning, an email went out thanking me for my service and announcing new leadership to ensure improved safety standards. I hadn't even packed my desk. The hallway outside his office that day was crowded. Parents who had hugged me at pickup. Volunteers who had shared coffee with me at folding tables. They looked startled. Some avoided my eyes. One woman gave me a tight smile, the kind used at funerals. He stepped out with the board chair beside him. They spoke in low voices about transition plans. When he saw me, he didn't falter. We appreciate your years of dedication, he said, loud enough for others to hear. But we have to move forward. It sounded generous. Reasonable. Final. I realized then that fairness had never been part of the equation. Only risk. Only appearance. He chose convenience over truth because truth was messy. Truth required admitting that budgets had been cut. That maintenance request sat unanswered. That warnings had been ignored. I was simpler. A single person. Replaceable. He held out his hand for the keys, and I gave them to him. Not because I agreed. Not because I accepted his version. But because I understood something he hadn't said aloud. The decision had already been made. It would have been easier if it had started with the roof. But it hadn't. The first time I understood my place was 5 years earlier, during the scholarship review. A girl in my program had perfect attendance. Straight grades. She lived with her grandmother and worked weekends at a grocery store. I recommended her, without hesitation. At the selection meeting, one of the board members cleared his throat and mentioned another candidate. The son of a donor. His file was thin. Average grades. Several absences. But his father had just pledged a large gift toward the new gym. My supervisor didn't look at me when the discussion shifted. He spoke about strategic relationships, about long-term sustainability. He said both applicants were deserving, but one choice would strengthen the school's future. The room nodded. I tried to argue gently. I said the scholarship was meant for need and merit. He smiled at me like I was being idealistic. He said we all had to think bigger than one student. The vote wasn't close. Afterward, he thanked me for my passion. He said it was good for optics to have someone advocating for fairness. Then he added, quietly, that decisions at that level were complex. The girl never complained. She just stopped coming to the after-school center. I heard she transferred districts. I told myself it was politics. Necessary compromise. Then there was the budget freeze. We were short on supplies. I requested funds for updated computers. The kids were sharing outdated machines that crashed mid-assignment. He told me to wait until the next quarter. At the same time, he approved a renovation to the administrative offices. New carpet, glass partitions, a fresh coat of paint for the lobby. When I asked about the timing, he said presentation mattered to prospective families. Enrollment drove revenue. Revenue supported programs like mine. It always circled back that way. One winter, a staff member confided in me that her hours were being cut without notice. She had 2 children. I brought it to him, assuming there had been a mistake. He said the adjustment was necessary to balance payroll. When I suggested trimming from non-essential expenses, he grew quiet. You're very focused on your corner, he said. Leadership requires a wider lens. The phrase settled in me. My corner. Every time there was tension between appearance and impact, appearance won. And each time, I was the one asked to soften the edges. To explain decisions to parents. To reassure staff. To absorb frustration. I was useful that way. Dependable. Calm. Willing to stay late and fix what I hadn't broken. By the time the ceiling collapsed, the pattern was already familiar. The institution first. The donors second. The image always protected. The program and the people inside it were negotiable. So was I. I think that's why he expected me to resign quietly. Because I had done it before in smaller ways. I had swallowed objections. Adjusted language. Smoothed over choices that weren't mine. He didn't see the difference this time. This time, the cost had my name on it. The boundary wasn't the termination. It was the letter. 2 weeks after I left, a parent forwarded me a copy of a formal statement the school had released. It said an internal review found serious lapses in program oversight. It mentioned failure to follow safety protocol. It said corrective leadership changes had been implemented. My name wasn't printed. It didn't have to be. Everyone knew who had been in charge. I read the statement 3 times. The language was careful. No direct accusation. Just enough suggestion to settle blame in one direction. I called him once. He answered on the second ring, voice steady. I told him the statement implied negligence. I said it would affect future employment. There was a pause, then a soft exhale. It doesn't mention you, he said. It doesn't need to. Another pause. Papers shifting in the background. We had to reassure families, he replied. There was concern about supervision standards. I reminded him that maintenance ignored written reports, that the leak had been documented, that no one from facilities was named. He didn't argue. He didn't agree. These decisions are larger than any one person, he said. You understand that. I did understand. He was protecting the institution again. And now he was protecting himself. The boundary came quietly. Not in anger. Not in raised voices. I told him I would be requesting all internal communications related to the maintenance reports. All emails. All meeting notes. I said I would also be consulting legal counsel regarding the statement's implications. The line went still. That seems unnecessary, he said finally. It's necessary for me. It was the first time I had spoken without cushioning the impact. No softening words. No reassurance that I valued the school's mission. Just a clear sentence about what I would do next. He shifted tone then. Mentioned potential reputational harm. Suggested that escalating would hurt everyone involved. I thought about the scholarship girl. The staff member with reduced hours. The water pouring through the ceiling while children moved their chairs to avoid the drip. I won't discuss this further, I said. I ended the call before he could respond. For years, I had asked for inclusion, for fairness, for acknowledgement. That afternoon, I stopped asking. My lawyer sent the first letter on a Tuesday morning. It was measured. Direct. A request for documentation related to maintenance complaints, budget allocations, and the internal review cited in the public statement. It also asked for clarification regarding any findings connected to my performance. Within a week, the school's tone shifted. The statement on their website was edited. The phrase about serious lapses in program oversight disappeared. In its place, they wrote about infrastructure challenges and ongoing facility improvements. No announcement explained the change. It simply happened. Former colleagues began forwarding internal emails to me. Quietly. Messages showing that maintenance delays had been flagged months before the storm. Notes from budget meetings where roof repairs were postponed to preserve administrative upgrades. None of it was dramatic. Just ordinary records. Dates. Signatures. Decisions. My lawyer filed a formal complaint for defamation and wrongful termination. The process was slow. Paperwork moved through offices. Insurance representatives became involved. The board hired outside counsel. Conversations that once excluded me now required my name in every paragraph. Parents started asking questions at meetings. Not loudly, just steadily. Why had maintenance warnings been ignored? Why had communication shifted after legal inquiry? Enrollment dipped the following semester. A local reporter requested comment on facility spending. He released a brief statement about regrettable misunderstandings and organizational restructuring. He did not mention me. 3 months later, the board announced his resignation. They thanked him for years of service. They cited a need for new direction. The settlement came without admission of fault. It covered lost wages, legal fees, and a formal letter clarifying that no negligence had been found in my performance. The letter was concise, official, signed by the board chair. I did not celebrate. I accepted the documents. I signed where required. I closed the folder and placed it in a drawer. The after-school center now has a repaired roof. A new facilities manager. Updated computers funded by a redirected grant. I drive past the building sometimes. The windows look the same. I don't go inside. There is no announcement of vindication. No apology delivered in person. Just records corrected and silence where blame used to sit. It is enough. I no longer wait for rooms to choose me. I choose where I stand.